Hi, I'm Mike Reynolds, a senior reporter covering the media industry with S&P Global Market Intelligence, Tech, Media, and Telecom News Team. Welcome to Media Talk, a podcast hosted by S&P Global, where the news and research staff explore issues in the ever-evolving media landscape. Today, I'm joined by Lynnette Luna. Lynnette is a senior research analyst in the Kagan Media Research Group with S&P Global Market Intelligence. She leads coverage of the U.S. consumer mobile and tower markets. How are you doing today, Lynnette?
I'm well, thank you.
Thanks for joining us again, Lynnette, on Media Talk. This time, we're going to jump around a little bit, if you don't mind. We're going to
Sure.
start by diving into a survey about wireless penetration by big and small players in large and small U.S. markets. Then we'll talk about Q2 results for the top companies in the wireless space overall. And finally, we'll dig in a bit deeper and assess where cable operators fit in this space and the opportunities that lie ahead, including maybe an eye on the small business arenas. Are you ready, Lynnette?
Yes.
All right, let's review a little bit of Q1 wireless geography. S&P Global Market Intelligence Kagan Media Census Online Consumer Survey was conducted in the first quarter. I think it was done in March, some 10,000 respondents. Lynnette, New York is the number one DNA. It also came in first when it comes to subscribing to the top three wireless players. Can you talk a little bit about that and some other markets with similar scorecards?
Yes. I guess when you look at like the total rank of we polled 10,035 users, it comes out fairly even. You have AT&T with 23%, T-Mobile with 23%, and Verizon with 25%. So it's almost like 75%. It reflects that a little bit in New York with Verizon leading. It reflects itself in all the top 20 markets.
Right.
And it makes sense. AT&T leading in like Atlanta and Dallas, where its headquarters are.
Sure.
You see T-Mobile leading in Seattle, where its headquarters are. So it really hasn't changed much from quarter to quarter
Okay.
there. I find what's interesting is just, I think the cable operators are gaining a little more market share that we see, especially out of the total respondents. I think 4 and 5% said they were with Xfinity or Spectrum Mobile or Charter. So that's interesting because Boost is always up there as a prepaid operator, and so is Metro by T-Mobile is usually up there, which is still the case. But now we're seeing the cable operators eclipsing those players.
We'll speak about more about this later, but the cable players, broadband's been their bread and butter for many years. That's slowing a little bit, so it makes sense that they're playing a little harder in the mobile wireless space.
Bundling is kind of, we'll learn that later too with when we talk about AT&T. The strategy is really to bundle users to make them more sticky users, right? You're less likely to leave a carrier when you have more than one service with them. It just makes it a lot more difficult.
It's interesting, though, too, again, in terms of this survey, some of these top markets up there, almost 70% or more with AT&T, T-Mobile, and Verizon. But then you get to a place like Seattle and Tacoma, the market's at 61%, with the other quote-unquote operators taking 31%. I guess that kind of speaks to what you said there in terms of maybe the cable guys getting a little bit stronger.
And there's, when you ask the survey, it's phrased as for a single personal mobile phone, but our data really indicates that some respondents still selected more than one carrier.
Okay.
So that kind of skews the results a little bit. And then the no wireless plan column, which seems to be high, it's usually due to a combination of multiple responses as well and the presence of non-subscribers. And when you answer a question, do you have a single personal mobile phone plan? Maybe you don't because you're part of a family plan.
Right.
Some of that is a little skewed there, but this gives us a good idea of what's happening in the market. But some of this stuff doesn't add up to 100% just because of multiple answers that people give. And I would never want to be a survey writer.
Okay.
I have ultimate respect for the people that write them because you have to really account for how somebody might answer sometimes.
And again, I think to your point here a little bit is that some of the results also suggest that in Seattle and I think in Sacramento, California, maybe 5% of the folks there, I don't know, however they responded, say they're not wireless at all. Is that possible? And I'll make a bad joke here. I mean, are they beaming something off the tower in Seattle that we don't know about, or is this telepathic?
I think the no wireless plan call, it pretty much captures respondents without a personal wireless plan because there's some people that subscribe, like I said, to family plans, but also to a lot of business plans allow you to use it for personal as well. So I'm pretty sure that some people just use their business plan as their personal plan. So there's lots of maybe ways to interpret that question sometimes.
Right.
I wouldn't be surprised if there's 1% that still has no
Right.
wireless.
Yeah. Yeah. So somebody's still climbing a space needle in Seattle
Yeah.
to use their phone somehow. Anyway, all right. The survey also delved into where the big players are in the top 20 US markets. And I think the idea was that if we want the top 20, that Verizon is in 8, AT&T is in 7, and then T-Mobile is in 6. So T-Mobile stronger out West Coast, Verizon here in the East, and then AT&T is big in its home market of Dallas and also in Atlanta. Any surprises in
Yeah.
any of that?
No, I mean, I've seen them in the past switch back and forth. Like T-Mobile's had the most markets in the past. AT&T has had it. A lot of the marketing too is regional. So if a carrier sees that they need to step it up in one market, then they'll be a little more aggressive in others. It's not surprising. The general, like Dallas has always been AT&T's.
Sure.
I haven't. And like I said, among the 10,000 plus respondents, it's fairly even nationwide.
All right. I think there's 25 market surveys where there was a base of 100 or more respondents that Portland, Oregon had the largest share of those indicating they received wireless service for an operator other than the big three at 34%. Again, this speaks to the growth of the cable guys and maybe some of the smaller players.
I agree with that. And also, I think Verizon's becoming a little more aggressive on the prepaid side. They've had quarter after quarter of losing prepaid customers. I think they're figuring out how to recoup that market. They did pretty well in the second quarter with prepaid.
Yeah.
But yeah, the cable operators are being really aggressive. Metro by T-Mobile is really aggressive as well. Their goal is to capture that lower end and then convert them into actual T-Mobile customers. So they offer a lot of the same perks that they offer on the T-Mobile side.
As we transition here into the second quarter, so T-Mobile did pretty well in the period ended June 30th, Lynnette?
Yes, they always do.
And how about the other guys? How did AT&T fare and then Verizon?
So yeah, T-Mobile continually leads in subscriber growth and service revenue momentum. AT&T is really building a lot of strength through convergence, so fiber plus wireless. And then FirstNet is a really big growth driver for them. I think they added 400,000 FirstNet subscribers. FirstNet is the part of their business that targets the public safety market.
Okay. Yep.
Verizon continues to face retention struggles in postpaid, but like I said, its prepaid and value-added bundles are stabilizing its growth. I think it's really been every quarter it talks about how it's very focused on profitability and it increased wireless revenue, but all of them increased service revenue in the quarter. Our industry is focused on subscriber additions, but as the market matures, we have to start looking at profitability per subscriber and what kind of subscribers do you want to have on your network? Are they the value that you want, or are you willing to let them go? And then prepaid's always interesting because T-Mobile added fewer prepaid lines. It just ebbs and flows. I think every quarter of the prepaid market does. It's really not predictable.
No, that keeps you writing, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Nothing wrong with that. How about the cable guys? I think that in the second quarter, I read that Charter added, I think, 500,000 mobile lines, which sounds like a lot, but it was down from about 560,000 in Q2 24. What was Charter's performance like in the second quarter here on the wireless side, Lynnette?
All of the cable operators are doing well. Charter had 500,000.
Right.
Comcast had around 300 some thousand. And I
Yep.
know T's had about 38,000. So what? That makes about 900,000 plus cable lines added.
Which is up. I think you said there was about 885,000 in the
Yeah.
first quarter. So
Yeah.
they're charting some growth, no pun intended.
They are charting growth, but then at the same time, Comcast and Charter lost 343,000 broadband subscribers.
Right.
What about the ones that, left? Okay, you're making the ones that are staying happy. But if they can't stem those broadband losses, great for wireless, and for those customers that they're keeping, but we still haven't seen like a huge change in churn. And that's what wireless was supposed to do, right? To keep these customers with its service.
Lynnette, you recently put out an outlook, I think, for the cable space in particular here with wireless that goes out, I think, through the end of the decade. Your sense for what 2025 will bring and maybe some of the dynamics that are going to shape the cable space over the next 5 or 6 years?
Yeah, they see significant runway for expanding their mobile businesses. And like I said, they really want to defend their broadband base against mobile carriers and then also drive incremental revenue. So that big loss of 343,000 broadband customers doesn't bode well for that. But I guess it keeps the existing customers happy that have subscribed to wireless. Let's see what we saw. In 2021, cable mobile subscribers as a percentage of US cable broadband subscribers came in at 12%. And we expect that actually that number to reach 56% by the end of 2031. But that number still represents 8% of the total postpaid subscription market in the same time frame. Mobile network operators will continue to dominate the market
Right. Yep.
going forward. Our latest forecast for cable mobile to grow combined mobile lines by more than 3.7 million in 2025.
Okay. Yep.
And then by 2031, we see an annual growth rate of 9.3% from 2024 to 2031. And revenue growth is also a big deal. Cable operators really have an advantage, of course, being MVNOs and really offloading a lot of their traffic onto Wi-Fi to really reduce that cost. So revenue means a lot more to them because they don't have to pump in a lot of CapEx into that. We expect revenue grow from 7.6 billion in 2024 to about 18.49 billion in 2031. And that represents about a 13.5% CAGR. That's a nice chunk for them.
I was going to say that's quite substantial. And I think we're getting a little bit to the end here, Lynnette. You mentioned the MVNOs. There was some big news at the end of July that T-Mobile was going to form an alliance with Charter and Comcast, I guess for the cable operators to further build out their mobile business with small and mid-sized businesses. Can you speak to that at all?
Yeah, a little bit. I think that it's great news for T-Mobile because T-Mobile's always been the weakest in the small and the mid-sized business market.
Right.
It has an MVNO that will help it target that piece of market. Verizon has historically been strong, so I guess I can understand why maybe they didn't want to craft a really great deal for MVNO players to attack the segment that it already has or that it already dominates in. But yeah, I was surprised that it went around, and it makes me wonder about going forward if it could change MVNO partners for the consumer market as well.
So both of the cable operators, they work with Verizon
on the consumer side.
So if they like what's happening with T-Mobile with business, could they change over, or is Verizon too well established in that stead?
It could, but I think Verizon's been very accommodating with the wholesale rates. I'm sure the cable operators are quite a nice cash cow for the wholesale business. And it's unfortunate that carriers don't report wholesale numbers anymore.
I know this is maybe not your area of specialty, but the small business market, how important is this for the cable guys to go there in terms of being able to add mobility to the packages they can bring out there to mom and pop shops and others?
Yeah, it's big. It's big, especially if you can bundle like they're doing in the consumer market, just being a one-stop shop for the S&B market.
And again, as we've talked about, as they look to grow overall here in the mobile side, this is another facet that can help them. And maybe if you like what's happening for the business, maybe you wind up converting for your personal use. So I guess it kind of works on both ends, perhaps.
Yes. And again, that capital light structure too is really good for the cable operators. They don't really have to rely on mobile as much as other MVNOs just because of the extensive Wi-Fi hotspots that they have across the country.
Right.
So that's always a good thing for revenue. I know for broadband, but it really probably would increase the stickiness of their broadband services by offering wireless solutions along with that.
Something to keep an eye on there. And we'll see what happens in 2026 and beyond. That concludes this episode of Media Talk. I just want to thank Lynnette for spending a lot of time bringing us up to speed on the wireless sector and sharing her knowledge about some of the dynamics that are shaping the business that's part of almost everybody's life, except maybe some in Seattle. Lynnette, thanks again for being with us.
Oh, thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
All right. And this is Mike Reynolds. Thanks to all of you for listening. We'll catch up soon on the next edition of Media Talk.